Anywhere someone creates a crime business, like the Biden crime family, 30 years of committing crime, same group of people. They had a formula on the split of the money. 50% went to Joe, and they divided the other 50. Nobody ever knows it because the crooked press covers it up. But that comes from Hunter Biden in a text to his daughter, written out. Over the last 30 years, I've given my father 50% of my income. And then when you look at their records, you can see that he, in some cases, is exactly 50% of what they got from the crooked Ukrainian company or the crooked red Chinese company. 30, 40 years of this, that's a crime family. Or if a financial institution turns into a fraud machine, that would be a crime family. It's not just violent mafia or other organized crime. It's any kind of serious crime that becomes so dangerous to society that it's an ongoing business. It's going to live after the criminals who go to jail.
You know, what the GOP investigated with this whole Biden crime family, that you coined that phrase from early on, and now you've been vindicated 100 times. Just from the information I saw, from my experience having 3 RICO indictments, it's a RICO indictment, 100%. 100%. I mean, they've got more, I think they've got more evidence against, just from what they uncovered, than they had against me in my trial with you. I've seen it.
Michael, you're not even close. This is as much evidence as we had against the commission, actually more of it. It is, even before the hard drive, it was a better case. First of all, you've got, it's as if we had Sammy the Bull on tape, saying that he and Gotti did 19 murders on tape. We don't even have to turn him. We got him on tape. You got Hunter saying, I gave half the money to my pop. What the heck's he giving half the money to his pop for? Well, obviously, because every single penny he got was intended to influence his pop. Half of it from our sworn enemies. I mean, the part that drives me nuts, whether they want to cover up their own corruption or not, how can they cover up what is basically treason against the United States of America? Taking 31 million from Red China, 3.5 million from Russia. I mean, it's one thing to take money from businesses or, okay, wrong, shouldn't do it. But this is not only bribery, this is, being a traitor to the United States of America. Now, you can't tell me that after 5 years of getting $31 million from China, when Biden gave up the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, it wasn't done because of the bribe. The Bagram Air Base was our biggest air base in Asia. We could have kept it. We could have given up Afghanistan and kept it. We keep air bases all over where we don't control the country. Everyone wanted him to keep it. Trump didn't even have a thought of giving it up. Miley, whatever the hell his name is, was against it. All his generals were against it. And he just gave it up for nothing. Didn't get anything in return, and he left $85 billion worth of guns and arms in there. Now, I don't know, either you're completely crazy or you're a traitor. And then, of course, all the generals never spoke out against him afterward, because all the generals became like Nazi prison guards. We're not going to, we're going to. And then we don't have to go on and say all the other things he did for China that indicate that he was corrupted by that bribe. I mean, he got 31 million, and his son got a $1.5 billion investment in a private equity fund that was made up of his son, him, John Kerry's stepson, and Whitey Bulger's nephew.
Whitey Bulger's
Whitey
nephew?
Bulger, in case people don't know, Whitey Bulger was the chief organized crime guy in Boston who made a deal with the mob, but also made a deal with the FBI to get away with killing people. You know who the U.S. attorney was when he did that? Mueller.
No. Really?
The same Mueller who did the Mueller report. Yes.
Wow.
So the case against me for 148 million. So that case is brought by Biden's ex-law partner.
Unbelievable.
It's
Rudy,
ubiquitous.
But how do you let, I mean, I know Trump did all these, I'm sorry, Biden did all these preemptive pardons of his family, last minute, pulled the wool over, tried to do an undercover as usual, but how do you let this go? How does Trump and the Department of Justice let this go when it was such an act of treason?
Yeah. Trump was faced with this himself. Not only that, I was right at his right hand when he was faced with it. I mean, he could have pardoned himself, his entire family, and all of us. I mean, all of us were tortured afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, he's not going to do that. He's going to go by the law. He's not going to do lawfare. No way. He could have done it. He didn't do it. He felt it would be a terrible, even if lawful, it would have been a terrible precedent to set for our country. We'd become like a banana republic if we did that. So this guy goes ahead and he does it. It's tough. It's tough because the pardon power is described as plenary, complete. President can pardon anybody he wants. Or there is a legal argument that you can't do an anonymous pardon. In other words, you can't do a pardon for crimes that aren't at least suggested. You can't say Hunter Biden is pardoned for 11 years of whatever he did. It's got to be specific things. Now, that comes about because, I don't want to get too technical, but when we wrote the pardon provision in the Constitution, we were borrowing the definition of English law for the King of England. And the King of England could not pardon unknown crimes. So they could be pardoned for the ones that were mentioned. But if you discover other crimes that they committed, you should be able to prosecute them. Now, that'll be debated and argued. And also, they're not free from being interrogated. They have no Fifth Amendment right left because they can't be incriminated. So you can bring them in and require them to tell everything. And if they commit perjury, you can put them in jail for them. And finally, you can do civil RICO against them and get their money. A pardon does not cover civil consequences, it's just criminal. So, and then he left some important people out that you might want to consider going after, like Jack Smith. And I mean, there are people, but in a way you can see what scoundrels they are. They left it for the smaller people to get prosecuted, not the biggest.
Well, let me ask you this, Rudy. Biden didn't pardon himself. And my position on this is, and I've been saying this to people for months now, his legacy needs to be destroyed, written in stone. If nothing else comes out of it, he has to be put up as a prime example that you just cannot act the way he did when you're in government service, vice president, and then as president. I think Trump has to pursue this just to show everybody how evil this guy was. And it's evil. What he did was evil across the board.
Well, there is a way to prosecute him that takes you beyond the statute of limitations, but I'm not going to explain it. Because if I explain it, they might be able to do things to fix it if they haven't figured it out. But he's prosecutable. After all, he's not pardoned. The only thing that would bar it is the statute of limitations. But there are ways, as we found out with Donald Trump, of extending the statute of limitations. And he may fall into one of those. But he's a target. I mean, there's no doubt about it if we have the guts to go after him. And after all, that's the appropriate one to go after. If you're going to prosecute one person, who do you prosecute? The head of the family, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody else might be do bad things, but he's the guy that incorporates it all. And he gets the most money. He got half, we know for sure, from his son, written down, he got half the money for 30 years. That means, Michael, bare minimum 25 million for him, maybe 30, and I think it's a lot more. The FBI had a woman in Ukraine that was willing to give them the offshore bank accounts, and they never interviewed her. They just ignored her. Imagine if they had somebody that had your offshore bank account.
Oh, gosh.
They just let her go. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to see Michael's offshore bank account.